Well, we move on to the next right, that is called right against exploitation. This is being guaranteed through article 23 to 24. The Indian society has been hierarchical. For the long, we have a very long history. So, the history has the kinds of exploitation in many forms. We had the hierarchical society and we have the problem with the exploitation in many forms. So, constitutional makers thought about guaranteeing some article so that exploitation is not taking place. The citizens have been guaranteed the right against exploitation through article 23 and 24. For example, that the police atrocities or police, how to protect oneself from the conviction for offences. Even if you are a convict, but what kind of freedom you have, what kind of liberty you have. So, no one can be convicted for an act that was not an offence at the time of its commission. So, you cannot have a retrospective effect of a criminal offence. If it is enforceable under the law on this particular date, then that is a crime, otherwise you cannot make it as a retrospective effect. Also, no one can be prosecuted and punished for the same offence for more than once. If it is being punished by once, then that is final, and you cannot be for the same case, and after completion of the punishment, you cannot be punished for the second time and can be forced to give witness against his or her own self. You cannot force ourselves as a witness to our own crime. And protection of life and personal liberty is guaranteed through this particular article. As provided in article 21, no one can be deprived of his or her life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. And protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. The arrested person should be allowed to consult and to be defended by a legal practitioner of his or her own choice. So, this is the basic courtesy being given by the constitution, that when somebody is being arrested and they can hire a lawyer to argue with the court about their position, explaining the position, about their innocence. Moreover, the arrested person must be produced before the nearest magistrate court within 24 hours of such an arrest. So, that is the minimum thing that has been, unless otherwise there is some reason behind that, every person, arrested person should be produced before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours. That has been guaranteed through the constitution. And prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labour. Traffic in human beings and beggar and other similar forms of forced labour are they have made it very decent, right. We all know that what kind of forced labour are being involved in when women are being trafficked or children are being trafficked, and they are being prohibited, and by breach of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with the law. And the next aspect is prohibition of employment of children in factories. The abolition of child labour has been guaranteed through this particular article. As the constitution provides, no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment. So, this is being utilized. Hazardous means that hotel is not a hazardous industry, so that can be employed. So, the child labour exploiters are using this particular thing. When constitution talks only about hazardous employment, why not the non-hazardous employment, the children be employed, right. And the fourth right is about right to freedom of religion. One of the objectives declared in the preamble is to secure to all its citizens liberty of belief, faith and worship. That is the reason that we can have the belief, faith and we can have the worship also. So, one of the important aspect of this right to religion is the freedom of religion is freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation of religion. Propagation of religion is a very important word, that if I believe in something, if I trust something and if I have faith in something, I can propagate that to the larger masses. I can take my own team with me. Such kind of freedom has been given in the constitution. All persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to profess, practice and propagate religion freely. Similarly, the law does not permit a widow to get cremated alive with her dead husband. That is a old age practice, but that has been guaranteed, that has been very strongly being mentioned in the constitution, that Sati Pratha that cannot be followed in the Indian system. And freedom to manage religious affairs subject to public order, morality and health. Every religious group or any section thereof shall have the right to manage their religious affairs freely. If you have an institution, if you have a religious institution, be it minority or majority, then you can manage the religious affairs. and to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes. For the religious and charitable purposes, anybody can start our own school, our own hospital, our own service centers, and that can be practiced. To manage its own affairs and matters of religion, to own and acquire movable and immovable property. So, in the name of this charitable trust, you can buy whatever you like, the movable and immovable property, and that can be. So, the faith and worship is being thoroughly guaranteed with so many words to administer such property in accordance with the law. As per the law, we can have manage. So, freedom to religion has been guaranteed in every aspect, to worship, practice, following it up, and then to propagate also, and to have your own assets. You can have create your own assets, you can conduct your own schools and hospitals, that has been guaranteed. The next item that we are going to discuss about in the fundamental rights is cultural and educational rights. To make us more civilized, to make us more rightful persons of the citizen of this country, the cultural and educational rights have been guaranteed in the Constitution. Protection of language, culture and religion of the minorities becomes essential so that the minorities may not feel neglected or undermined under the impact of majority rule. Being one particular group is more dominant in more in number in one country, that does not mean that the other group should suffer from the impression of the majority group. Since people take pride in their own culture and language, a special right known as cultural and educational right has been included in the chapter on fundamental rights. And one particular thing is that protection of interests of minorities, particularly educational and cultural rights, we need to protect the interest of the minorities. Any minority group having a distinct language, script or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. No citizen shall be denied admission to any educational institution maintained by the state or receiving aid out of the state funds on grounds of only of religion, race, caste, language or any of them. You cannot deny an admission to anybody if you are a government run institution or government funded institution, then in the name of religion or in the name, you cannot discriminate whether they belong to, whether they believe or they have faith in one particular religion, you cannot deny them. So, right of minorities to establish and administer educational institution has been guaranteed through Constitution. All minorities, whether based on religion or there could be language minorities, have the right to establish and administer educational institution of their own choice. And the final thing that we need to discuss is about right to constitutional remedies. Constitutional remedies means that when your freedom is under threat, when you have a problem with your personal liberty, then you can go and seek the remedy from the constitutional protector called the Supreme Court. Since fundamental rights are justiciable, they are just like guarantees. They are enforceable as every individual has the right to seek the help from courts if they are violated, but in reality it is not so. Encroachment or violation of fundamental right in our day to day life is a matter of great concern, which is why the Constitution does not permit the legislature and the executive to curb these rights. It provides legal remedies for the protection of our fundamental rights. This is called the right to constitutional remedies stipulated in Article 32. This is one of the finest rights. And the last right that has been added in 2010 is called right to education, that we all know, that has been made as fundamental right. The right to education is added by the introducing a new Article 21A in the chapter on fundamental rights in 2002 by 86th Constitutional Amendment. It was long standing demand so that all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years and their parents can claim compulsory and free education as a fundamental right. It is a major step forward in making the country free of illiteracy, but this addition remained meaningless as it could not be enforced until 2009, when the Parliament passed the Right to Education Act 2009 and came into effect in 2010. In this act, which claims at ensuring that every child who is between 6 and 14 years of age and is out of the school in India goes to school and receives quality education, that is his or her right. So, with this 7 fundamental rights, the Constitution made us more civilized, more rightful person, not just as citizens. We are rightful citizens. We can have all the liberty, right from equality, right from choice of freedom, and we have the right against exploitation. We have right against all kinds of exploitations, and we can have the right to have, all our children have the right to have our own education at the school level between 6 and 14, and all these rights made us the Indian Constitution one of the finest document, and the fundamental rights is one of the finest chapters in the Constitution of India. So, in this presentation we have seen the fundamental rights. Initially we had 7, and one of the rights was dropped during 1978, that is right to property. Then we had 6. In 2009 through an act, Amendment Act, we added Article 21A, and we had right to education. So, all these acts, all these fundamental rights, the 7 fundamental rights makes us more rightful citizen of this country, give us a lot of freedom to choose our religion, to choose our profession, to choose our place of residence, to choose our job, and to equally, irrespective of the caste and creed, that we can claim the every right in a government job or in a place of learning. These rights are helpful to make us more meaningful and more rightful citizen of this country. So, hope you enjoy this lecture and look forward to meet you again in another lecture. Thank you so much.